Welcome to Look Around the Confederation. I'm your host, the Evening Moose, and before we get started, please remember, the views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are not necessarily the views and opinions of the SCV, it's GEC, Northern Division Brigade Camps, or its subsidiaries. How is everybody doing in Dixieland tonight? We'll have a great show for you where we have Army of Tennessee Councilman Carl Jones on to talk about his platform for Army of Tennessee Commander. So please share this out, especially if you're in the Army of Tennessee, and let's get some good views here for Councilman Jones. All right, we're going to run through some news really quickly and jump into the interview. How is everybody doing? Let's see here. David, it's good to see you. Victor, it's good to see you. Landon, good to see you. Camp 2150, good to see you. Out of Florida. Good to see y'all. Lieutenant Commander Chief Walter D. Donnie Kennedy asked Carl to speak up so we could hear him when he gets on. Because, yes, I can barely hear Carl sometimes. Well, honestly, I do have bad hearing. But let's get on into the news. Let's see here. All right, first bit of news comes from my camp, the Samuel H. Poe Camp number 255, coming out of Wayne County, Mississippi. We're selling these 30th anniversary challenge coins to celebrate our rechartering. They are $10 a pop. You can, of course, contact either me or my father. You can contact me on Facebook at Harrison SCV. And you contact my father at Forrest SCV, and you can get these wonderful limited edition challenge coins we had made to celebrate 30 years of the Samuel H. Poe Camp. All right. Now, funny enough, we talked about this at the Army of Tennessee workshop. These basketball cards are baseball cards, let me rephrase. And let me tell you, they are as awesome as they look. Of course, we got to see him at the Army of Tennessee workshop this past weekend, and they are phenomenal. And I would definitely get in touch with Rich Garcia, the first lieutenant commander of the Tennessee Division, and see what you guys can come up with, because they are awesome. So real quick, for those who don't know, there was a bad storm up in Tennessee. HQ, Elm Springs, and all of our employees are safe. We talked to Adam a bit ago, and of course we post an update on the SCV chat website as well as our Facebook page. So thank you guys. Continued prayers, because Tennessee did get hit pretty hard, and there's some people out there we'll be posting about later, the SCV relief fund. And we'll post a link to it on our Facebook page. So if you want to help out, you can. Past Commander Chief, the most sharp-dressed man in the SCV, Paul Gramlin Jr., in the chat. Good to see you. David, I haven't had a chance to go by the post office today. Today, yesterday, and the day before that have just been extremely busy. And I haven't even had a chance to go by my post office to pick up my mail. So I'll have to rain check if I got your books yet. But thank you for sending them. I can't wait to read a bit more about it all. So, all right. Picking on the next bit of news is the General Forrest 200 Society. Of course, this was made a couple years ago to celebrate the 200th birthday of General Nathan Bedford Forrest. This is, of course, done by, I believe, the General Forrest Boyhood Home. You get these wonderful challenge coins, a patch, and a label pin. They're only accepting 200 people of these, and I know they're running low. So if you want to join this awesome deal, please contact them immediately over there at the Boyhood Home. I'm hoping that I will have some leftover money after my vacation next week to go get me one. So that's going to be awesome. And please support it. I mean, all proceeds go to benefiting the General Forrest's Boyhood Home. I mean, that's pretty cool if you ask me. All right. Scrolling down a bit more. All right. So next bit of news will be coming out of, let's see here, South Carolina. So members of the Horry Rough and Ready's SCV Camp 1026 out of South Carolina after installing 4 Southern Crosses of Honor at Elliott Cemetery in the upper part of our county at the end of April. Here's a picture of them, of course, with their flag, and here's them getting and installing the Southern Cross of Honor. These pictures are of his wife, Miss Mary Fisher, myself, Camp Color Sergeant Craig Thompson, Camp Guardian Director Paul. There are nearly 700 unknown Confederate soldiers buried in Horry County between our camp and our sister camp, Lynchfield SEV Camp 132. We have placed Southern Crosses all over the half of the grave sites there. They are asking that they're challenging all other camps in the Confederation to place at least one or more Southern Crosses of Honor at Southern's graves during the month of May. And that's a cool thing. Me and my dad tried to go out there and put a couple out a couple years ago, and we did a great job. I think our dad got about 8 or 9. I'm unsure, though, on the final number. And I will be trying to go out a bit later in the year and do that myself. I know there's a couple of veterans in my area that could use it. So great job. Let's see here. The next bit of news comes from the Pennsylvania Vindicators Camp. A long time no see, my friends. The Pennsylvania Vindicators Camp 828 and Camp 515 formed the Ring Gold Battery for Living History events. This was from the 4th of May. It was a great day. We were the main attraction at this event and was our second year there. And this is, of course, at the Halifax Heritage Festival in South Boston, Virginia. That's awesome. I like the fact that y'all are out there doing that. Reenactments, events like that where you get to fire a cannon. It immediately attracts young people to the organization because, well, Southern boys like seeing stuff blow up. And it's also just very cool to get out in the community and do stuff like that. So I want to congratulate these two camps, Camp 828 and Camp 515, for this outstanding community outreach they just did. Congratulations, brothers. Thank you. And I hope to see more soon. Got a couple more people in here. We got Camp 1209, the Kirby Smith camp in the chat. Look around Florida, the Florida man, Sean McFall. Kyle Thompson is late. He's back in the running for the Thomas Franklin Award. There you go, Kyle. We'll give you something. Camp 2287 is also in the chat. Hi, Boyd. Good to see you. Yes, Landon, I got your email. We'll be talking about that soon. Let's see here. Just kind of going through everything. All right. I just want to check on everybody in the chat. What happened to Santa? He had to finally go back down to the South Pole. It was getting too hot here in Mississippi for him. He just couldn't take it. Santa's not made for the southern heat. So he had to leave. Bless his heart. But we do have a couple more events to talk about before we bring on our guest. And let's see here. I believe we got one from Louisiana. Poke Salad Festival happening in Blanchard, Louisiana, May 11th this weekend at 9 a.m. The Richard Taylor Camp has hosted a unit in this parade since 1996. They have always been very welcomed. Bring your rifles, flags, and throws. All are welcome. Weather forecast is perfect. Line up number is 16. We're looking forward to seeing everybody there. Again, it's important to show up to these festivals. It's important to be out in your community, and that's awesome that they've been doing that since 1996. Again, a great way to stay involved in your community. So if you're around this area in Louisiana, or if you just want to make the trip, please do contact the Richard Taylor Camp and ask them if they would like you to join. It's very good to have big big turnouts for events like this, so we can prove to our enemies how strong we are. No. Didn't you hear Santa moved to the South Pole years ago, Commander Groundland? He couldn't take being told his home was in the North Pole. He just had to go to the South. All right. Finishing up our news, we'll be going to Georgia with the Robert A. Toombs Camp 932, the Mellard Camp 1386, and the Battleground Guards Squad of Troop 5 of the SCV Mechanized Cavalry have teamed up to erect the first grand monument in over 100 years. Here are some of their plans. Let me remove that. Carl is chuckling at me behind the scenes at that amazing butchering of that. Connor's actually telling me to get an English book over the phone as well. I'm getting blown up right now. Y'all were fast on that marker. But it looks like they're also selling bricks. It has been a long day for me, if you can't tell. And this is where they're at right now. And let me read what the camps have sent to me. So the monument is being placed at the intersection of Highway 280 and Highway 29 in Hingenton, Georgia, at the home of Robert A. Toombs, Camp 932. The first 3 tiers have been placed along with the foundation. 2 more tiers will be added very soon. The Georgia division of the SCV has donated a 6-foot-tall bronze Confederate soldier to go on top of the final tier. We are also selling bricks, just as the national headquarters are currently doing. The money will be used to purchase the paver, along with the reminder to go towards for the remainder to go towards the groundwork ahead of which will surround the monument. Of course, here are some photos I've shown you. When the monument is finished, we project that there will be an unveiling ceremony shortly after. All members, friends of, and other supporters of Southern Heritage are welcome to attend the ceremony. God bless Dixie. That is awesome. Again, for those who don't know, I'm a very big monument guy. I love monuments. It always brings my heart great warmth seeing monuments go up. And this is just a spectacular project these 2 camps and this squad of the SCV MC are doing together. And, of course, the Georgia Division donating that top soldier. Great work by these gentlemen. I cannot thank y'all enough. Continue to keep us updated here on SCV Chat. Send me a message after the show, and I'll try to post about it tomorrow to get you guys a lot of publicity so that you have the show and this. But yes, great work, guys. Thank you for all the work you're doing for the cause, and keep it up. Y'all will get it done. All right. That is all the news and all the butchering I have hopefully written down for this episode. If you can't tell, it's been a week. I think I mispronounced a word that I could probably have gotten right last week. But it's good to see everybody. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we will have Army of Tennessee Councilman Carl Jones on to talk about his platform, Army of Tennessee Commander.
There is a place, nestled in the rolling farmland of southern Middle Tennessee. A home, constructed in 1837, nearly lost to the ravages of war. Saved by a servant and a Confederate general. A place where families loved and lost. If walls could talk, what stories could be told? If a place, a home, can feel love, loss, pain. Surely this is one of those places. Nearby is a more recent structure, and inside are the stories of heroes and heroines, stories of battles won and lost, stories of sacrifices made by the people of its native soil. A place that will tell the true and complete story of the Southland and the war fought for its freedom. From the causes that led to the conflict to the modern-day struggles to protect Southern history. Historic Elm Springs and the Confederate Museum at Elm Springs are the general headquarters for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. A place where the story of the Southland and its historic struggle is preserved and told. Come and discover your history.
Welcome back to Look Around the Confederation. We now have on Army of Tennessee Councilman Carl Jones. How you doing, Carl?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I can't complain. I could, but I'm not going to.
Well, hey, look, before we get started, since I've given you a hard time about your pronunciation of things, I'm going to brag on you a little bit. For those that were not here, Moose did great in the shooting class we did as a fundraiser for the museum. We try to get everybody down, starting out to a 2-second draw to a zone hit on the target. And then we work them down to a 1.5 second and as fast as we can go towards 1 second. Moose got the 2 second. That's outstanding on the first day of ever drawing a gun out of a holster and firing. So, hey.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this one just because I'm looking forward to your answers. Because ever since I met Carl, the first time I heard him, the only two things I heard come out of my mouth, out of everybody's mouth when you were first elected to councilman, was y'all get ready for that acceptance speech. It's going to be long. We're going to be here all day. And Connor looks at me and Connor does, you better get comfortable. This is going to take a second. He's like, you're going to love Carl, but he likes to talk. And Carl gets up there, looks at everybody, thank you. And he sits down. And I look at Connor, he does. That was my first introduction to Carl Jones.
I'm full of surprises.
Oh, well, we all like to be surprised, Carl. But kind of to start us off, tell us a bit about yourself and your SCV career so far, so to speak.
Well, I am Carl Jones, married to Donette Jones, my lovely wife. I've got had 3 sons. I got 2 that are still living. And my oldest son, Zach, got a granddaughter by him who's cute as she can be and about to turn 12 years old. I can't believe it. She's grown up way too fast for me. SCV career, I joined in 2004. So I'm coming up on 20 years. Joined initially, I was a member of the Fighting Joe Wheeler camp in Birmingham, Alabama. And 2012, I transferred into the Thomas Jefferson Denny camp in Coleman, Alabama, because we had moved up here. After I joined the SCV a few years later, we moved, about an hour north of where I lived in Shelby County. We moved to Coleman County. And so, in the Wheeler camp, I was started out as newsletter editor. Some of y'all might remember Mike Scruggs. He wrote the book Uncivil War. Was it was an excellent book. And Mike was actually the newsletter editor for the Wheeler camp, and he was moving. He retired. He was moving back to North Carolina, and so in June of 2004, and back then we didn't have proration. So I started coming to meetings in March of 2004, but they didn't mail my dues in until August. They would hold your dues until the next fiscal year, so you didn't have to pay twice. And so in June of that year, I took Mike's place as newsletter editor for the camp. I had a role in the camp, an office in the camp before I was even officially a member yet. 05 became second lieutenant commander of that camp and held that position for a couple of years. That was actually a great position for me because I've been in sales and advertising and marketing forever. And so it's kind of a natural role for me. Eventually moved on to first lieutenant commander of that camp. At the same time, in 2008, I was kind of, dragged is a bad word. That would imply I was unwilling. I wasn't unwilling, but kind of lured, I guess, into division leadership. And I was chief of staff under Robert Reams, who was our division commander at the time. And that was a really great experience for me because being kind of Robert's right-hand man, I was involved in everything. It was the great experience for me was that was when I really began learning how the SCV functions, at various levels at the camp, brigade. It was and division especially, and it was very eye-opening. It was a great learning process. So I was chief of staff for 2 years. Jimmy Hill came on to I was not, of course, a voting member of the DEC. I was appointed position, but Jimmy came into being brigade commander that same year, 2008. And he and I really supported each other a lot. He asked me to come speak at his brigade workshops. And in 2010, I was elected to brigade commander. And Jimmy and I, we actually started doing projects together at that point. 2012, I ran for second lieutenant commander of the division. I was actually going to kind of like either stay brigade commander or step down, but I had some members in Alabama. Hey, why don't you run for second lieutenant recruiting officer? And so I did, and I served in that position until 2016, at which point I was first lieutenant commander when Jimmy Hill was division commander. And in 2018, I became division commander. During that time, during those years, I also held offices in the Army and National. So I can't remember exactly the years. I think it was 2010 to 2014, maybe. I can't remember. I served 2 years or 4 years, but I was chief of heritage operations for the Army of Tennessee. And then 2016 to 2018, I was chief of heritage operations for National. Then 2018 to 2020, I was deputy chief of heritage promotions when Donnie came in and took over as chief of heritage ops under Paul's administration. Donnie had asked me to stay on. And so I did, and that was a good role for me because I also went on the same year to become Alabama division commander. And then, of course, 4 years ago, I got elected to Army Councilman, and that's where I've been ever since. And so, it's a lot of experience, a lot of different roles, a lot of different positions, a lot of different vantage points in terms of kind of, learning the organization, learning the membership, getting to know the membership, getting to understand, kind of the challenges and the needs of the organization. Over, all those years, 16 years now, I'm still on the Alabama Division Executive Council as past division commander. I will roll off. So after June 1, it'll be the first time that I will not have been in division leadership in 16 years. So that frees up a little bit of time to put into the Army commander position. It's a big role. And so, that'll cut some of the meetings down because I've been attending national division and, and everything else for quite a while now. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So, Carl, what motivates you to run for Army of Tennessee commander?
Two things. I believe in the cause, first and foremost, 100%. It was the cause that lured me into the SCV. Secondly, I love the membership. I mean, you know, I've told people this 1,000 times, you know, the men that you meet and the people you meet in connection with the SCV are the best people you'll ever meet. And I believe in the brotherhood and the camaraderie and what we're doing, working together. But you know, for me, it all goes back to the cause. It's kind of funny. I was a history geek growing up, and but I was fascinated mainly by World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and the reason being that I had living family members who were in those wars. My great grandfather was a huge influence on me, especially in my interest in history. And, you know, he lived till I was 28 years old. That's unusual. He was almost 97 years old, and he passed away. And I remember as a kid following him around. Granddad, tell me about this. Tell me about that. So I heard stories firsthand from a man that was there in the trenches, you know, in 1917, 1918. And that kind of inspired an interest. It's funny when my friends in the 4th grade were reading Snoopy and Charlie Brown, I was reading the Guadalcanal Diary, you know, and I read that book, I think 5 times in 1 year. And so I was always a history guy, but when I got a little older, into my 20s, late 20s, even, I guess late 20s, maybe early 30s, I kind of went a different direction. I heard some of the political pundits, conservative political pundits that I listened to at the time, you know, constantly referring to the founding fathers. And I thought, you know, I don't know much about that era, about that generation, you know, other than what we learned at school, George Washington chopping down the cherry tree, which was nonsense. And so my wife and I were in Williamsburg, Virginia on a business trip that I had to go on, and I took her with me. I went over to the library and I bought a book, or not the library, the bookstore there in Williamsburg. I bought a book called Patriots by an author named A.J. Land Guth. And it was a big book. I mean, it's 600 pages. I wound up reading that thing 4 or 5 times. I do that. I watch movies over and over again. And I read books over and over again. And one of the things in there was that when it got towards the end, they talked about the war's over. You know, they won their independence and they went to set up a new government. And it's Thomas Jefferson. I remember the one line in there that really sparked it. It really intrigued me was that Thomas Jefferson did not believe in a strong central government, and he was fearful of a standing military force. And I just couldn't wrap my head around that because I'd grown up in this wave of nationalism and thought, what in the world is wrong with Jefferson? I thought he was a patriot. I got to find out more about this. So I started reading about the founding fathers. I started actually, and then eventually started going back and reading the speeches and the debates in Philadelphia and in the state ratifying conventions. And my whole worldview was just shook up. And when I went back and found out what you know, discovered guys like John Taylor of Caroline and some of these other unknown founders, St. George Tucker and various others, and I read what their views of government were, I thought something somewhere has gone just horrendously wrong. This country is off the rails. Neither party, I don't care what they say, neither one of them represent the founding fathers. What in the world happened? Well, I was a big fan of Walter Williams, and I read an article by him defending a book by a guy named Thomas D. Lorenzo called The Real Lincoln. And in this defense of his book, which Williams wrote the foreword to, here's a black man, a educated black man, a man that I look up to and really admired, Walter Williams, a professor of economics at George Mason University, and somebody I just you know, I loved everything that the man ever said. He took complex subjects and made them simple. So I was a great admirer of his, and here he is saying that the South was right, and I was like, I got to find where is this book. And so I got The Real Lincoln and I read it, and that was the turning point for me. And that was around 2002. And a year and a half, 2 years later, I heard some guy on the radio talking about the Sons of Confederate Veterans and what the organization was for. And I'm sitting there going, all right, I got to find out more about this. Well, about 3 days later, I attended my first camp meeting. I made 78 camp meetings in a row. So that's a little over 6 years, 6.5 years. The first Wheeler camp meeting that I ever missed was because by then I was a brigade commander and I was speaking at another camp. So I just, I got into the SCV because the realization had hit me that the South was right. The principles that the men in 1861, 1865 fought for were the same principles that our colonial forefathers had fought for, and that was the right to self-government. And I joined the SCV, and I've never looked back. And there you have it. Concise as I can make it. Sorry.
Carl, I've been looking forward to hearing these questions or these answers from you, so don't apologize. The next question, and this is kind of one we've been asking everybody, how do you envision your role contributing to the overall mission and goals of the organization?
Well, we've got to work together. We're a brotherhood. I mean, I believe that. This, like I told y'all at headquarters, this past weekend for the AoT workshop, the SCV is my family. I mean, it really is. And we don't always have to agree on how to get from point A to point B, but we all do agree that we want to get to point B, right? And, the organization right now, I'm astounded that we're not 2 million members. We should be. I think the potential is there for that to happen. I don't know how long it would take, but I know that there's more people out there who believe in what we're doing than we have members of the organization. There are certainly more, millions more who are qualified to join. Somehow we've got to reach those people. And that's what I want to contribute to is growth in the organization. I've always been one that is, willing to work with other, other members, even in other divisions. I mean, I've done a number of projects that cross division lines. I'm a big believer in camps within a brigade and brigades within a certain area of the division working together. And it's like I told Alabama last year at our reunion, the cause, we may be in different localities, okay? We may be in Birmingham, Alabama, or Knoxville, Tennessee, or High Point, North Carolina, or wherever. But guess what? Guess what the similarity is, or what's the common theme in all these places? That is the cause. Okay, it doesn't change. It's the same from California to Virginia and from Maryland down to Texas. We all share the same cause, and that's what we've got to we've got to find a better, more cohesive way of promoting that. And so that'll be one of the things that I hope that the council and the membership and the divisions will try to implement over the next couple of years.
All right, yes, sir. Now, this next question is kind of just, what do you want to do as Army of Tennessee Commander? It specifically says, what are some initiatives or changes you would like to implement as Army of Tennessee Commander?
Growth. Simple as that, growth. It's got to be a two-pronged approach. Number one, we've got to bring our presence into the 21st century. Okay. Donnie and I were talking about it the other day, and I think we're all on the same page here. If you go to YouTube, aside from SCV chat, if you go to YouTube and look up Sons of Confederate Veterans, what do you find? You find everybody else's opinion of who we are, except ours. We don't have a presence there. That's got to change. I made this statement back in 2016, when I was chief of heritage operations, Tom Strain was commander-in-chief. He was coming in as commander-in-chief, and about 6 months before he got elected, he said, "Hey, if I get elected, I want you to have your operations plan ready to go." And I spent a lot of time dwelling on that and looking at the kind of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, what we call a SWOT analysis in the marketing world. This is not my idea. I stole this from Brian McClanahan, a conversation Brian and I had back in 2014. But it occurred to me that we were focusing in on a 4-year period of 1861 to 1865 to the exclusion of the other 400 years of Southern history. Okay. And I told the council back then that we need to be promoting the South. Think about, and Connor went over this a few weeks ago, but think about the contributions that Southerners have made to the independence, the settlement of the South, the independence from Great Britain, from British rule, to winning the independence, to forming the country, to forming the Union of sovereign states through the Constitution. Four of your first 5 presidents were Southerners. Here's a funny point for you. 4 of your first 5 presidents were Southerners. 6 of your first 8 presidents were Southerners. There were 2 Yankees out of the first 8 presidents. Guess what they both have in common? Both of them have in common the dubious distinction of being the only members of the founding generation and their posterity, their children. So these 2 generations of not being elected to a second term. John Adams and Quincy Adams were both defeated because the Yankee plan for America went down in flames at the ballot box. Nobody wanted big government. Okay, so the South was clearly driving the narrative in the colonial period, in the formation of the Union. And you can go on and on and on. Davy Crockett, Lewis and Clark, Jim Bowie, okay, Daniel Boone, who's my ancestor, believe it or not. These are the men that pushed the country westward. So if you take the South out of America, what are you left with? Not much, right? We need to be promoting these things. I'd like to see the SCV, and Connor, I know y'all are working on this. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I want to see the SCV come out and go on the offensive, but in a positive manner, in a manner that promotes the cause and promotes our culture and our people. Okay. And long-winded answer, I know, but I'm not going to go into the details right now of how we do that, because there's still some pieces of the puzzle to be put together, but that's what I want to see happen and what I want to be a part of facilitating.
Wow. That was a great answer, Carl. It reminds me of something you told me the first time I saw you, that, if we want people to be proud to be a Confederate, we first have to show them how to be proud to be a Southerner, because people aren't even proud to be from the South.
They've been taught for generations that the Southern dialect is just backwards, ignorant hillbilly talk. That's friggin' stupid. I've had this conversation with family members, and people get mad at me on some of this stuff, but whatever. What'd you hear all your life? Ain't a word. Who says it's not a word? Okay. It's been a word in the English language for 500 years. It's a contraction, just like couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't, can't, won't. It's a contraction. It means am not, are not. 500-year-old word in the Southern language. What it's not is a Yankee word. Yankees didn't use it. The Southerners in Southern England did. All right. I had somebody tell me one time, reckon and yonder, that's hick talk. Really? Reckoning is a form of mathematical calculation. Dead reckoning was used in the nautical maritime service to determine a direction to go in. Reckon, when you say I reckon, it means I calculate. Okay. It's been around since, if my memory is correct, around 1300 AD. English. Yonder comes from a Germanic term. Look at the etymology of these words. Germanic term. You ever heard the hither and yon? It's where yonder comes from. It's been in the English language since around 1500 AD, I do believe. Y'all can look up on that and fact check me. But yeah, so Noah Webster he said this, he wrote the English dictionary, the Yankee dictionary, Webster's dictionary, for the purpose of killing off any dialect that was not Yankee, Puritan, New England dialect. He wanted us all to talk like them. And now we're teaching this garbage in schools that ain't a word, reckoning yonder, and other words like that. I can go on and on with some of that stuff, but you get the point that these are hillbilly talk and it's not proper English. Well, it's not proper Yankee English, but guess what? I'm not a damn Yankee, so I don't care how they talk. I'm not going to talk like them. All right, these are the kind of things that we've got to take back. We've got to correct the history on some of this stuff and start promoting the truth of who our people were and are to this day. James Webb in his book, Born Fighting, he made an excellent point in there. Your worldview was developed about 250 years before you were born. Now think about that. The food that we eat, the way that we talk, the way that we worship, our views on religion, they're not new. They were ingrained in us. They are Southern traditions that have been handed down to us generation after generation after generation. I don't want that changed. I want my children and grandchildren to be able to experience the same South that I experienced growing up, because it's a wonderful place.
Amen, Carl. We do have two people in the chat that said Shakespeare used yonder. Yeah,
what light through yonder window shines. I'm not a Shakespearean, but I do somewhat kind of hopefully got that right.
Better than I did. You could tell that the Southern education was starting to be Yankeefied by the time I was in high school. I'm just lucky my history teacher turned out to be my father.
You are very fortunate. Yes, absolutely.
I'm very fortunate, and I know it. Now, here's one I've been asking a lot of people, and a lot of people, of course, have different perceptions on this one. You know, regarding public perception, how the outside world sees the SCV. How do you plan to navigate potential controversies or criticisms surrounding the SCV?
Bulldoze them. I don't care what people outside the SCV say. All right. Our enemies, I don't care what they think. We've got to attract our people to the cause. I'll tell you a story, and this comes from Brian McClanahan. Brian told me this years ago when I was writing for Abbeville Institute. A guy named Murray Rothbard, and I can't remember the other guy's name. There were two of them. They started off in a room. It was a small office that was like 6 feet by 8 feet wide or something like that, with two typewriters in it. This is back in the 1960s, and they started banging out articles on free market economics, and they were getting these articles published by anybody who would listen. And sooner or later, both sides, conservatives and Democrats, started attacking their narrative, started attacking what they were saying. And did they respond to the attacks? Nope. They ignored them. And they just kept banging out articles promoting this free market system. And flash forward to today, and what that initiative emerged into was becoming the Ludwig von Mises Institute, which now has campuses, I believe, in 38 countries. Okay. So one of the things I think one of the mistakes we sometimes make, and I'm guilty of it too, because I'm of the, I'm sort of the mindset, if somebody pokes me in the chest, I'm going to punch them in the nose. And that's sort of Southern culture, but it can be detrimental if we sit back and we fall into the trap of responding to every idiot reporter out there who writes something about us. Instead of responding and taking a reactionary position, what if instead we are in constant promotional mode, constantly promoting our ideas, who we are, and giving our people who are outside the organization but sympathetic to us a reason to be proud of who their ancestors were. Ignore the criticism and go on the offensive by presenting a positive view, an honest view, a truthful view of our people, our culture, and our cause as an organization. I think we'll attract a lot more of people that way. And I think that eventually, as was the kind of the campaign slogan of the Grambling administration, take back the narrative.
I like it. Thank you, Carl. Wow. I love that idea of just pushing through it and just showing people who we truly are. Because our enemies, in my opinion, they're always going to say something. I don't think the North, if you can look through all the history of America, has ever liked the South.
No, going back to England, they didn't like us. I mean, it didn't even start here. We were two different people back then.
And so I love that idea, just steam rolling through it all. And now we're on our last two questions. So if anybody in the Army of Tennessee has a question they would like to put it into the chat. I'll try my best to either have the time to talk about it or see it, but my eyes aren't the best, and these comments scroll pretty fast across my screen. Don't spam the chat; that automatically gets you suspended. But go ahead and ask your questions. Something that a lot of people have been talking about is strategies when it comes to transparency and communication within the organization. That's been a vocal point, it seems, with everybody this election. What are your ideas about helping with communication in the SCV and transparency?
Well, I've been hearing that for as long as I've been in. And I think we're in an age, I think adding to the difficulty of the communication issue is that you've got so many different platforms for communication, and nobody's on all of them. You got one generation that does Facebook. You got another generation that does Instagram or TikTok or whatever. But at the same time, we've got the Confederate veteran. We've got the Telegraph. I'm amazed at how many members don't know that the Telegraph exists. You want communications, get on the Telegraph. But they for whatever reason, they don't know it's there. You've got division newsletters. Most camps now have Facebook pages or camp newsletters. So there's multiple means of communication out there. Frankly speaking, I think that the answer is what we're doing right now. I would like to see every member of the SCV tuning into chat on Monday and Thursday nights. And Look Around Florida if you're in the Florida division, because Sean does a great job down there. I've been on with him a few times down there. But what other organization has the commander-in-chief come on once a month and answer questions from the membership? So the information's out there. The ability to communicate is there. In terms of, let's say, initiatives coming from the GEC going down to the membership, Donnie nailed it. And this is something I've been saying for a long time, and Donnie probably has too. Probably we're not the only ones. Probably others have been saying it, but the brigade commanders are absolutely crucial. And I think for a long time that brigade commanders in some divisions, if not all divisions or most divisions, have been always kind of seen as a sort of an honorary position. We need to change that. They're crucial in giving guidance to the camp and feeding information to the camp and helping the camps grow, helping the camps raise funds. So, how do we fill that gap? We've got to train the division. We're work with the divisions, I should say, to train brigade commanders, to train camps on growth. And not every camp needs it. I mean, I'm not going to walk into the Zollicoffer camp and say, hey, y'all need to change what you're doing when they're sitting there on top of 200 members, or Camp 1209 down in Jacksonville. They don't need my advice, okay? But you got a lot of camps out there that are 12 members and have been for a long time, and they're hanging on, and maybe they want to grow, but they don't know how because information is not getting to them or ideas are not getting to them. And that's something I want to do in the Army, is to work with. If you look at the role of the AoT commander, or I should say the Army commanders per the SCV Constitution, it is to work with the divisions and work with the camps through the divisions to facilitate growth. And that's actually the second responsibility of the Army commander. The first is to represent the divisions, or the divisions within his Army on the GEC. So those are your two primary things. So yeah, I think we've got to, one of the things that I see missing a lot of times is, that you've got brigade commanders who perhaps need some training. You've got camps that want training, because look, we're constantly changing these positions out. Sometimes you're replacing a brigade commander every 2 years. And so maybe he's not in the role long enough to really kind of get his feet. I was fortunate. When I became a brigade commander, I had a couple of really good brigade commanders that went before me, and they were holding workshops. And, when I got into office as brigade commander, I just did what they were doing. And, and kept that kept moving forward with sort of what they were doing. And we had 14 camps in my brigade, and we maintained them, and they were growing and doing well. So I think there's got to be involvement at all levels of the organization, and I think the chain of command is very important. And a lot of people don't understand the chain. I've come out of the military, so it's kind of second nature to me. But, if you're a camp member and you got a problem, the answer is not to pick up the phone and call Adam Southern, or call. If everybody did that, Adam would be getting 30,000 phone calls a week. Okay. Go to the next guy in your chain of command, which is your camp commander. If he can't solve the problem, take it to the brigade commander, and then the division commander, then the Army councilman, and on up the chain of command. But I think that there's a lot of things that in terms of training that have been sort of, overlooked. And that's one of the things I want to do with the Army. Jimmy and I have been holding Army workshops once a year. I want to hold about 4 a year, maybe 3, maybe 4 a year, and move them around. Say, let's say next year I do one in Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. And then the next year I do Mississippi, Kentucky, Florida, what have you. And like I said, I want to work with the divisions to find out, identify who are the camps in your division that are struggling, but don't want to be struggling. They want to grow. They're emotionally, mentally, intellectually, they're bought into what we're doing, but they just aren't sure how to grow their camp. All right, be here at this workshop. We're going to give you all the tools you need.
That's awesome, man. As someone who is a brigade councilman, I was so appreciative for the training I got from Jimmy and you, because it's made me a better brigade officer. And I would love to see, no matter how things sway, that brigade or Army workshops continue like they have, and continue to train camp, brigade, and division officers. All right. Last question on my end. I haven't seen. We have one question that I was able to catch from Landon. So send us a couple questions. Our poor Carl is going to be heartbroken. Just heartbroken, I tell you. If you get elected, Carl, what do you envision as key milestones or accomplishments for the SCV during your potential tenure as Army of Tennessee commander?
A presence, a sweeping presence on social media, and growth in numbers, growth in the Army. I've talked with, I think, every division commander now, except maybe one. I think I've talked with most of them, and I'm going to talk with the others, and kind of laid out my plan. And so far, all of them are on board with me. And that's in terms of doing the workshops. This is not something we're going to come in and you know, tell the division, you got to do this or that. We're going to work with the division. You know, they're in charge of it, but I'm going to, you know, come in and give some pointers to, you know, try to help the division train their struggling camps. That's, you know, that's part of it. We've got some camps out there. We've got one in Georgia. This guy contacted Jimmy a week or two ago. They had 20% growth year before last, or last year, and this year they've had 37% growth. I'd like to see every camp doing that. Imagine if the entire organization grew by 37% a year. What would we look like in 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years from now? And it's doable. It absolutely can be done. So numbers are important. They are. I know a lot of people think, well, we don't need numbers. We just need, you know, members who are committed. You know, we need members that are committed. We need lots of them. We need members. I don't care if you're a member just on paper or not. If you'll write an email to your county commission, your state legislator, send an email, send a letter, make a phone call once a year, that's great. That's another thing is, you know, I think we need to build the Friends organization up. We got a lot of people out there who may be eligible, but we can't prove it, or that maybe they know they're not eligible, but they sympathize with us. They're on our side. We need, you know, I'd like to see the Friends organization being, you know, having the same number of people in it that the SCV does, because we've got the people out there that are willing, that are, you know, that would join if they knew about it. But I think growth in numbers is crucial. I think that getting our message to a broader audience through social media is crucial. And I think that those are the, you know, of course, paying off the museum as well, but I'm talking about beyond that, getting the forest plaza reinstalled, you know, but those are already on the table. So I'm talking about initiatives that are beyond those two obvious things that we want to get done. But, you know, again, it's the cause. You know, I know 100% with 100% certainty that we have got the moral support of the majority of Southerners, and that needs to be harnessed into activism, active support.
Let's see here. We do have someone asking if you're going to run for the Alabama legislator.
Yeah, I think I'd have about as much chance as a snowball in July in Alabama. You know, takes money, man. You got to have, and if either party, if I went and joined either party, and they heard my platform, they would pull out all the stops to make sure that I never had a chance. So no, I don't see that in my future. You know. But look, maybe if the SCV becomes as influential as I'd like for it to be, we can motivate other people that would be willing to jump out there.
Brian did say Carl Jones for president.
If the South ever becomes an independent union again, we'll talk then.
People are saying that you should be Speaker of the House now.
You know, I will say this too: if the South had won the war, there'd be a lot of things different. You know, I'm not going to go into specifics and get political, but you know, there's a lot of initiatives that the Northern narrative drives the entire country now. It's asinine. It's not the way the country was supposed to run, but that's getting into national politics. And, you know, I'm more of a local, agrarian kind of guy, Jeffersonian kind of guy. I'm also a believer in like what I tell you in the start of the show. What changed my political worldview, drastically changed it, was my understanding of history. Well, what if this organization can inspire millions more Americans to have a better understanding of real history? What might come out of that?
I don't know, Carl. You seem like you'd be popular either in Alabama or Georgia. Georgia people are asking for you to come run in their Congress.
Yeah,
now.
I love Georgia, man. We got a great division over there. And they need to beat their horn more, man. They're doing some great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or toot their horn, I guess is the word. Beat the drum, yeah. I'm a musician. I should have known that.
Beat the drum is a new one.
Yeah.
We have, it seems, just kind of two questions left. One is actually seems like it asking for advice, while one is a question about your position. Historian in Chief and Mississippi Division First Lieutenant Commander Forrest S. Dawes
I know
asked, yeah, I've seen him before. It is my belief that the National Confederate Museum is the greatest tool the SCV has ever wielded. How do you think we can better utilize that tool?
The museum, here's the deal. Here's why the museum is a game changer, okay? Our adversaries have a launching point. They have a foundation from which to project and spew their false narrative. It's called academia. It's called the entertainment industry. It's called the political machine. Think about it. We have never had a home base. Okay, now we do. We've got I think a 26,000 square foot building on our property that is home base to historical truth. All right. It is a great launching point for the education of not only our members, but the public at large. All right. You've got people that are coming there from all over the country. I believe that's going to pick up when we get the museum paid off, and then start taking that money and pushing it into new artifacts, promotion of the museum. I'd like to see, the first thing I would like to see done where the museum is concerned is I want a billboard heading north before exit 237 and another one heading south before exit 237. And I think beach traffic will pass those and say, hey, on the way back, we need to stop by this museum. We've got to get it open on Saturdays. I think we're missing a great opportunity by not being able to open on Saturdays. All right. But the museum itself, I mean, I am absolutely 1,000% a believer that can be a game changer as a headquarters, not only for our administrative staff, but for our knowledge, for our intellectual arguments against the woke mob that are they got nothing to stand on. Their arguments are stupid and hollow. Okay, the problem we have is they come out with these stupid talking points and spew one-liners at you and pat themselves on the back. Ha ha ha! I stumped him there, and I have to counter that stupid, idiotic one-liner of theirs with an hour of contextual history. For example, the war is all about slavery. Everybody knows that. Well, ha ha ha! I got you. And then I got to sit there and explain. It takes me an hour. No, you're wrong about that because Lincoln said this. Blah 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 blah. And I got to put everything in context. And meanwhile, they're just shouting slavery, slavery, slavery at you. It's idiotic. Okay. But now the context is housed where? In the National Confederate Museum on our property at Elm Springs. And now I don't have to stand there with a bullhorn shouting back at these idiots. We've got a building. We've got this massive, outstanding, just wonderfully put together timeline, plus the artifacts that now we can invite people to our home base and read the narrative for themselves and compare it against the narrative of our opposition. And you tell me who makes the better argument.
Well, I think I'll know who wins that argument.
I don't even know if I answered the question or not. You got me on a tirade there, man.
I think you did. I think you proved the importance of how we can use the museum. I think that was the question on let's go back. How to utilize the museum.
Right.
And I do believe personally you answered that. The next question is from David Pope. He says, rhetorical question. How do you get the word out in larger cities where the media refuses to cover you? There are still some people who don't use social media and won't use it at all.
Yeah, there are some, but there's a lot who do. I mean, I know people, lots of people my age and even older in their 60s and 70s that are using it every day. There's a lot that aren't, but that'll change. I mean, I had a camp when I was chief of heritage operations. I believe it was in Arkansas that were in a larger city, and they asked me a similar question to that. I told them, don't beat your head against a brick wall. There's got to be a suburb of that city somewhere where you're more welcomed. And guess what? There was. And they moved their location, their meeting place to that area. They wound up finding a Confederate cemetery down there. And they went and started cleaning up that. There was actually one Yankee buried there. And they wound up doing a joint project with the Sons of Union, SUV, whatever they call themselves, and SUV CW, yeah. And they did a joint project cleaning up the cemetery. The mayor was so impressed that he came out and he and his wife donated $100 of their personal money. It wasn't city money. The news media covered it, put it on the front page of the local paper, and he called me to tell me about. He had taken my advice because I was preaching, I was big on the message, and still am, on the message of community involvement. Get active in your communities. And I know in the larger cities, the cities have gone over to the other side, man. That's a hard thing to do. So David, I don't know how to tell you, you know your city better than I do. You know what the ground looks like up there a lot better than I do. But I wouldn't beat my head against that wall for too long before I started looking at some of the metro areas that might be a little friendlier, and maybe planning home base there or trying to work within those cities. If you stay in Knoxville, but get outside to some of the outlying areas and start 10, 15, 20 miles down the road and start trying to work with them. If you look at the red-blue, all the red-blue map is, okay, all it is, guess what? Rebels and Yankees. That's all it is. Where you see blue, those are people that have been hoodwinked into Yankee thought, okay? And so what has that map become? It's become rural versus urban, right? City people tend to be a little bit more liberal than us rural people are, big city people. They're academics and that sort of thing, and they've been propagandized, some of them to the point of no return. There's some of them we sway back our way if they got common sense. All right, but I don't know how long you can beat your head against a wall like that. But I know this, in the rural small town, and when I say rural, I'm not talking about 1,000 population towns. I'm talking about a town like I am, where you got a county of 85,000 people. That's still small town, small county. I think our city population of the county seats around 13 or 14,000. That's still a small town. We can win in places like that. And there are a lot more of those than there are big cities.
Very, very true, Carl. I want everybody to please thank Councilman Carl Jones for coming on tonight and talking about his platform for Army of Tennessee Commander. Please share this out to everybody you can. Again, especially if you're in the Army of Tennessee, it's very important who's running for your offices and to best prepare yourself for that vote. I think we've done a great job with it. We only have 3 more interview episodes left. We have one in the Army of Northern Virginia, our people running for Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief, and, of course, our Commander-in-Chief. So thank you guys all for watching. Make sure again to share this episode out. Let's get a big views. And make sure you tune in Monday at 7 p.m. Confederate Standard Time for your weekly episode of SCV Chat. And make sure you send your news, pictures, short videos, and write-ups to scvyouthoutreach@gmail.com, and you'll be featured on the upcoming episode of Look Around the Confederation. I also want to tell everybody to make sure you sign up for our Patreon. Our Patreon is keeping us on the air. It is allowing us to improve. It is allowing us to go on the attack. It is allowing us to get bigger every day. SCV Chat has already almost reached 1 million people this year alone. Think what we can do with just a bit more help, guys. It's only $10 a month. You get a lot of cool perks. We're working on giving you a couple more. One we'll actually be hopefully talking about soon whenever I can get GCB out of work and film an episode of the podcast. Speaking of which, we do have a new podcast, so go listen to that. And also we want to thank our sponsors for this season, Creative Cockage. Historically accurate, great prices, and a lot of great cockades. I don't think I can sell it any better than that. Connor was supposed to write me a script, so I'm just going to throw him under the bus and say he didn't do it. And he's not on here to defend himself. So you're going to believe it. Let's see here. Next Monday, we have, let's see here. It looks like we are talking about GCB has written down a book. So I don't know how he's going to do that. I will be off. So you guys have fun with that. Great days to you, sir. But thank you guys for watching one more time. Again, please thank Carl for coming on. He has been a very lovely guest. I am so happy to have Carl on. It's always a treat to have him on. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure, again, one more time, share it out and to stay Southern, my friends. Good night, everybody.